On the 1st of February, 2025, at an altitude of 6,600 meters, just below the summit of Aconcagua, a Polish law professor loses consciousness and never wakes up. Arkadiusz Wudarski is 52 years old. Behind him are an ultramarathon across the Sahara, a race near Everest Base Camp, the summit of Kilimanjaro, 3 departments at 2 universities in 2 countries, and a principle he lived by his entire life. Aconcagua is a mountain they call non-technical, a mountain that doesn't require ropes, a mountain where 21 people have died over the last decade, nearly all of them above 6,000 meters. Why did a body that had endured extreme strain for years shut down without warning? And where is the line between the willpower that lifts a person up and the ambition that won't let them turn back? To answer that, you have to start not with the mountain, but with a city in Silesia where it all began. On the 7th of December, 1972, a boy is born in Poland who will spend his life straddling 2 worlds. Arkadiusz Wudarski grows up in a country just beginning to open itself to Europe and makes an unusual choice for a young Pole. He pursues 2 fields of study at once. At the law faculty of the University of Silesia in Katowice, he studies law, a discipline undergoing a turbulent transformation in 1990s Poland. But at the same time, he earns a master's degree in German philology and pedagogy. This is no random whim. For a lawyer who wants to work at the intersection of the Polish and German legal systems, the German language is not a supplement, but a tool equal in importance to the diploma itself. Katowice is the capital of Upper Silesia, an industrial city with a heavy history and a tough character. People here don't waste anything. Silesia teaches you to work hard and complain little. Wudarski absorbs this mindset. He finishes both programs and a question stands before him. Stay in Poland or push further. He chooses further. To defend his doctoral dissertation and complete his subsequent habilitation, Wudarski moves to Hamburg. His supervisor is Professor Peter Mankowski, one of Europe's leading experts in international private law. The University of Hamburg is an entirely different environment. The rigorous standards of the German academic tradition, a different language of scholarly debate, a different level of competition. Here, you don't just write a dissertation, you defend it before people who are used to taking every argument apart piece by piece. Wudarski passes through both filters, the doctorate and the habilitation. This means the German system recognizes him not merely as a researcher, but as a scholar capable of leading his own academic direction. He leaves Hamburg with the right to teach civil law, European private law, and comparative jurisprudence. 2 cities shape him in different ways. Silesia gives him stubbornness and a habit of hard work. Hamburg gives him method, German precision, and a network of international contacts. Together, they create a person who feels at home on both sides of the border. That border will soon become his literal address. But before the border becomes his home, Wudarski returns to Poland. In 1999, at 26, he takes a position at the Institute of Administration at the Jan Długosz Academy in Częstochowa. The city is known across Poland for the Jasna Góra monastery, but in the academic world, it's deep province. This is where Wudarski starts building something that doesn't yet exist. He founds a research group on European private and comparative law, the first of its kind at this university. A man with a Hamburg habilitation could have sought a position in Warsaw or Krakow. He chooses Częstochowa and decides to create an academic environment from scratch. Over the following years, he lives in pendulum mode, teaching in Częstochowa, traveling to conferences and residencies in Germany, publishing in 2 languages. In 2007, a turning point arrives. Wudarski receives a research fellowship from the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. In the German academic world, this is one of the highest forms of recognition for a foreign scholar. The fellowship means Germany considers you significant enough to invest in your work. From 2008 to 2010, he completes a postdoctoral stint at the Institute of European Law at the University of Osnabrück, 2 years of concentrated research at one of the strongest legal centers in the country. In 2009, while he's working in Osnabrück, the rector of Jan Długosz University awards him for outstanding academic achievement, recognition from his own university, from people who see how much he puts in. Osnabrück values him highly too. In 2011, the city and university jointly present him with an award for outstanding achievements and the international promotion of Osnabrück. For a Polish jurist, this is an unusual degree of integration into the German system. He's not a guest, but a full participant. After completing his fellowship, Wudarski joins the Societas Humboldtiana Polinorum, the Association of Polish Humboldt Fellows. In 2013, he becomes its Secretary General. In 2016, Vice President. This is no longer just a researcher. This is a person who builds a community around himself and connects people the same way he connects legal systems. Częstochowa gave him his first department. Humboldt gave him status. Now he needs a place that matches the scale of both lives. Such a place exists on the Oder River. On the Oder River stand two cities separated by a bridge, Frankfurt an der Oder in Germany and Słubice in Poland. Between them is the European University Viadrina, founded in 1991, specifically as a meeting place of East and West. In 2010, Arkadiusz Wudarski receives a professorship here and takes charge of the chair of Polish and European private law and comparative law. He is 37, and he arrives at the only university in Europe whose campus physically spans two countries. His workplace is the Collegium Polonicum in Słubice, a joint institution of Viadrina and Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan. Here, students from Poland and Germany study side by side, earn dual degrees, and from their very first semester work with two legal systems at once. Wudarski teaches in exactly this program. Every one of his seminars is an exercise in translation, not just from one language to another, but from one legal logic to another. Polish inheritance law and the German notarial system, European directives and national codes. He teaches students to see how one and the same life situation looks different through the lens of different traditions. The border where he works is no metaphor. It's a literal bridge over a river that he crosses regularly. But for Wudarski, it's also a principle. He builds his career so that he never fully belongs to either side. Starting in 2014, alongside Viadrina, he founds and heads a civil law department at the University of Zielona Góra. In 2023, a third position is added, research professor at the University of Szczecin, 3 universities in 2 countries at the same time, lectures in Słubice, seminars in Zielona Góra, research in Szczecin, conferences in Hamburg, Vienna, Tbilisi, constant moves, a schedule with no empty days, and a pace that most colleagues consider impossible. Those who work alongside him notice this man lives as if his days have more hours than everyone else's. The energy fueling this speed clearly doesn't stop at the office or the lecture hall. And indeed, Arkadiusz Wudarski has a second life that his departmental colleagues know about, but whose full scope not everyone grasps. That second life begins on the running track. Exactly when Wudarski runs his first marathon is unknown. None of his colleagues remember the moment he suddenly got into running. The impression is that running was always with him, a natural extension of a personality that doesn't know how to stand still. But at a certain point, marathons occupy a place in his life comparable to law. He doesn't run occasionally. He runs systematically, with increasing intensity year after year. Dozens of classic marathons around the world. 42 kilometers and 195 meters, a distance most people will never run in their entire lives. Wudarski repeats it again and again in different countries, on different surfaces, in different climates. For him, it's not a one-time feat, but a regular practice, as obligatory as preparing for lectures. The German radio station WDR Cosmo interviews him. The headline reads, "Professor and extreme marathoner, 2 roles in 1 sentence, and neither yields to the other." The journalists see what everyone around him sees, a man who presents at a comparative law conference in the morning and starts a multi-hour race on the weekend. Colleagues from the Słubice 24 newsroom, who worked with him later, recall, mountains were his great love. He adored running, not also ran, or sometimes went hiking. A great love, exactly. Over time, classic marathons stopped satisfying him. 42 kilometers is a challenge, but a familiar one. Wudarski transitions to ultramarathons, multi-day races over extreme distances, where the body runs on depletion, and the outcome is determined not by leg speed, but by mental resilience. This is no longer a weekend sport. It's a way of life in which the boundary of one's own capabilities is not a limitation, but a waypoint. At his departments across 3 universities, they know. Between conferences and semesters, Wudarski goes off to competitions. He comes back, sits down to write a paper on European inheritance law, and a week later leaves again. 2 worlds run in parallel, and both are accelerating. The speed builds, and with it, the stakes. Wudarski chooses tests where ordinary marathon experience no longer guarantees anything. First stop, the Marathon des Sables, an ultramarathon across the Sahara, roughly 230 kilometers over 7 days across scorching sand, at temperatures that can exceed 50 degrees. Participants carry all their gear and food on their backs, sleep in open Berber tents, and drink exactly as much water as they are given at checkpoints. The organizers call it the toughest foot race on Earth. Wudarski finishes. The exact year is unknown, but the fact is confirmed by colleagues who knew him well. Second stop, the Tenzing Hillary Everest Marathon, the highest marathon in the world. Start at an altitude of 5,164 meters near Gorak Shep, within sight of the Khumbu Icefall. Finish in Namche Bazaar, nearly 2 kilometers lower. The course follows Sherpa trails, through glaciers, moraines, suspension bridges, past monasteries and stone stupas. The air at the starting line contains half the oxygen found at sea level. Just reaching the start requires 3 weeks of trekking with acclimatization. Wudarski gets through this too. Third stop, Kilimanjaro. 5,895 meters, the highest summit in Africa. Technically, it's not mountaineering, but high-altitude trekking. No ropes needed, no ice axe needed. The route is marked, but altitude works the same for everyone. Above 5,000 meters, the body begins to fight every step. Wudarski reaches Uhuru Peak and descends. 3 tests, 3 different environments. The desert, where the enemy is heat and dehydration. Himalayan trails, where the enemy is altitude and thin air. An African volcano, where the enemy is a monotonous multi-day ascent under oxygen deprivation. Each one is a step into a new dimension, from endurance to altitude, from running to climbing. The pattern is clear. Wudarski doesn't repeat what he's already done. He raises the bar every time. His motto, later recorded by colleagues at Viadrina, goes exactly like this. Push beyond your limits, because only then do you truly live. After Kilimanjaro, his altitude ceiling is 5,895 meters. The next step will be 1,000 meters higher. But that step is still ahead. For now, both lines of Wudarski's life are climbing simultaneously, and by the early 20s, both reach their peak. In science, something happens that happens to very few. Recognition comes not from a single center, but from everywhere at once. In 2020, he receives the scientific award of the chairman of the Council of Ministers of Poland, one of the highest state honors a Polish scholar can receive. The award recognizes outstanding contributions to science, and for a specialist in comparative law, it means his work has reached beyond the narrow professional circle. A year later, in 2021, he's elected a member of the International Academy of Comparative Law in The Hague, an organization uniting the world's leading legal scholars. That same year, he becomes a fellow of the Collegium Helveticum, an elite research program at ETH Zurich, and the University of Zurich that brings together scholars from different disciplines for interdisciplinary work. In 2023 comes election to the Academia Europaea, one of the most prestigious scientific associations on the continent, whose members include Nobel laureates, mathematicians, physicists, and philosophers. For a jurist from Slubis, this is not just a line on a resume, but confirmation that his way of working at the intersection between systems across borders has been recognized at the highest European level. That same year, he receives the research professor position at the University of Szczecin. Now, he has 3 departments in 2 countries, and each one is active. By this point, the geography of his influence spans half the continent. He's a visiting professor at Tbilisi State University, president of the Polish-Georgian Legal Society. He sits on editorial boards of journals from Warsaw to Baku. In 2024, Tbilisi State University awards him its gold medal. The medal is to be presented in person during his next visit to Georgia, and it sounds like a simple formality because Wudarski visits Tbilisi regularly. A research visit to Vietnam is planned for 2025. At 52, his career is not plateauing, it's accelerating. And in parallel, behind him, stands a track record that has nothing to do with law, dozens of finish lines across 3 continents. Both lives demand the next step. In science, that step means new projects and new countries. In the mountains, it means a new altitude. And that altitude has already been chosen. The new altitude is in Argentina, and it's called Aconcagua. 6,961 meters, the highest summit in South America, the highest point in both Americas, the highest mountain outside Asia. For a man who has built his life on the principle of systematically raising the stakes, it's the logical next step after Kilimanjaro. But between 5,895 meters and 6,961, there isn't just 1,000 meters of difference. It's a different physiology. On Kilimanjaro, the body works hard but copes. Most healthy, well-prepared people can climb Uhuru Peak and come back. On Aconcagua, the body enters a zone where compensatory mechanisms start failing. Atmospheric pressure at the summit is 40% of sea level. The blood thickens, the lungs work under overload. The heart pumps viscous fluid through vessels constricted by cold. Every additional meter of altitude is not a linear increase in difficulty, but an exponential rise in stress on systems that no one controls consciously. Did Wudarski have experience at intermediate altitudes, between 6,000 and 6,500 meters? No such experience is documented in available sources. His athletic profile is endurance running, marathons, ultramarathons, multi-hour races in extreme conditions. This speaks to an outstanding aerobic base, iron will, and the ability to endure suffering for hours. But a runner's endurance and the body's ability to adapt to extreme altitude are different things. A Sahara marathon tests thermoregulation and psyche. Aconcagua tests how a specific heart and specific lungs respond to oxygen deprivation that lasts not hours, but days. He is 52, an age at which many people are only beginning to think about mountain trekking, but also an age at which Aconcagua's statistics become unforgiving. The share of fatalities among climbers over 50 is disproportionately high compared to younger participants. Wudarski probably doesn't know these statistics, or he knows them but doesn't apply them to himself. A man who has run across the Sahara and finished a race at the foot of Everest has reason to believe his body is capable of more than average. He joins a commercial expedition with a professional guide. The name of the operator will not appear in any subsequent publications. Wudarski flies to Argentina. Argentina greets him with summer. In the southern hemisphere, February is still hot in the valleys, but at altitude you can already feel autumn approaching. Aconcagua stands in the province of Mendoza in the central Andes, and from a distance it looks deceptively calm, a massive dome with white streaks of snow. No sharp ridges, no sheer walls, no ice falls crashing down on climbers as they do in the Himalayas. On the normal route, you can climb this mountain without ropes and without an ice axe. Crampons are needed only on certain sections. This creates a reputation that has cost dozens of people their lives. Aconcagua is often recommended as the ideal introduction to high-altitude mountaineering. Commercial expedition operators sell it as almost a 7,000er and a stepping stone to the 8,000ers of the Himalayas. Marketing materials use the word non-technical, and it's true, but it's a truth that masks the main danger. Technique is indeed unnecessary on this mountain. What's needed is something else. The body's ability to survive at an altitude where the air contains less than 45% of the oxygen available at sea level, and that ability cannot be trained in a gym or on a marathon course. It's determined by genetics, the quality of acclimatization, and a measure of luck. The numbers tell the story better than any description. Over 10 seasons from 2013 to 2024, 21 people died on Aconcagua out of 29,397 climbers. The mortality rate looks low, 0.07%, but 90% of those deaths occur above 6,000 meters. 71% are from medical causes that are labeled vaguely even in official reports: unspecified, sudden cardiac arrests, pulmonary edema, cerebral edema, collapses with no warning symptoms. Bodies that function normally at 5,000 meters fail at 6.5. The mountain has long been nicknamed the Mountain of Death. More than 100 people have died here since records began, averaging 3 per season. Summit success rates run at only 30 to 40%. Most turn around before reaching the top. Headaches, nausea, weakness, confusion force people into a decision that saves their lives. Those who don't turn around either stand on the summit or stay on the mountain. The climbing season is the southern summer, from November through late February. Wudarski arrives in the middle of this window. Ahead of him is an ascent that will take about 2 weeks. Ahead of him is an altitude he has never reached before. The normal route on Aconcagua climbs in steps, and each step is not just elevation gain, but a test. The first camp is Confluencia, 3,400 meters. It's still warm here, you still have an appetite, you can still sleep. Next comes Plaza de Mulas, 4,370 meters, base camp, a city of tents on a rocky plateau from which the mountain is visible in its entirety and looks simultaneously close and unreachable. Here, climbers spend several days making acclimatization rotations, ascending 500 to 700 meters, then descending back to sleep. The body needs to get used to producing more red blood cells to at least partially compensate for the lack of oxygen. At Plaza de Mulas, a medical service called Extreme Medicine operates, a team of doctors who conduct a basic examination of every arriving climber. They measure pulse, blood oxygen saturation, blood pressure, and listen to the lungs. This is not a formality. The doctors are looking for early signs of altitude edema, arrhythmia, and dehydration. Whether Wudarski underwent this examination is unknown. The results, if they exist, have not been published and will most likely remain a matter of medical confidentiality forever. The next step is Nido de Condores, the Condor's Nest, 5,550 meters. This is the last camp with any semblance of comfort. Tents, relatively flat platforms, the possibility of preparing hot food. Above this begins what climbers call the assault zone, Camp Berlin or Camp Cholera, around 6,000 meters. Here, people sleep in snatches, barely eat, and breathe with difficulty. At this altitude, the body does not recover. It slowly deteriorates, and the only question is whether you can ascend and descend before the deterioration becomes irreversible. How many days Wudarski's group spent on the mountain is unknown. How their acclimatization was structured is unknown. A standard program on the normal route takes about 2 weeks, but every operator plans differently. Some allow more rest days, others accelerate the ascent. The quality of acclimatization is one of the key survival factors on Aconcagua, and this is where the difference between a good and a mediocre operator can cost a life. There is no data on Wudarski's physical condition in the days before the summit push. Did he have headaches at 5,000 meters? How did he sleep at 6,000? Did his appetite decrease? Did shortness of breath appear at rest? All that will remain from those days is a single sentence from the guide, spoken after the fact. But before that sentence, there is still one more day, Saturday, the 1st of February. That day begins in darkness. The summit push on Aconcagua starts long before dawn, usually between 2 and 4 in the morning. The group leaves the high camp at roughly 6,000 meters and begins the ascent to the summit. Ahead lies nearly 1,000 meters of elevation gain and 8 to 12 hours of work in conditions where every movement requires a conscious effort. Temperatures in the assault zone of Aconcagua at this hour can drop below -30. Wind on exposed sections of the ridge can knock a person off their feet. But the main enemy is not the cold and not the wind. The main enemy is invisible. At this altitude, each breath delivers less than half the oxygen the body is accustomed to at sea level. The weather on summit day is unknown. The condition of the route is unknown. The exact time the group set out is unknown. All that exists is one sentence, spoken later by the group's guide: the ascent was going well. Wudarski was moving with the rest of the group, without visible problems. For a guide leading a commercial group up a nearly 7,000-meter summit, going well means the client is keeping pace, not falling behind, not complaining, placing his feet confidently, responding to questions coherently. By all these outward signs, nothing foreshadows what is about to happen. The group passes the 6,000-meter mark, then 6,200, then 6,500. Every 100 meters of altitude on this section is not 10 minutes of climbing, but 30 to 40 minutes of battling your own body. 10 steps, stop, 5 breaths, 10 more steps. a rhythm that cannot be sped up. The legs move, but the brain operates at half capacity. At this altitude, everything slows down: reaction time, decision-making, the ability to assess your own condition. The group climbs above 6,200, above 6,500 meters. Less than 350 vertical meters remain to the summit. 2, maybe 3 hours of climbing at a normal pace. The summit is no longer an abstraction, it's visible. The ridge rises in one final push, and beyond it lies the highest point of 2 continents. Then everything changes. At an altitude of approximately 6,500 to 6,600 meters, Arkadiusz Wudarski suddenly loses consciousness. He doesn't slow down, doesn't complain of a headache, doesn't ask to stop. He collapses. Sources differ on the exact altitude by 100 meters. Argentine media will report 6,500, Polish outlets 6,600. The University of Częstochowa will say the summit was 350 meters away. At this altitude, a 100-meter difference equals 15 to 20 minutes of climbing. For the outcome, it makes no difference. The guide reacts immediately. On commercial expeditions, guides are trained in high-altitude emergency protocols. Check consciousness, ensure an open airway, begin resuscitation if there is no pulse. The guide does everything he can. Wudarski does not respond. The body that endured ultramarathons and the pace of 3 universities in 2 countries does not answer any intervention. The guide calls emergency services. Rescuers are based at the lower camps, and between the collapse site and the nearest help lie hundreds of meters of elevation and difficult mountain terrain. Above 6,000 meters, helicopter use is extremely problematic. The air is too thin for stable flight in most conditions. Help comes on foot from below. A doctor arrives accompanied by a UPRAM unit, the Unidad de Patrulla de Rescate y Auxilio en Montana, the Mountain Rescue Patrol Service of the Aconcagua Provincial Park. These are people who work on the mountain every season and know what death looks like at altitude. The doctor conducts an examination and confirms what the guide already understands. Arkadiusz Wudarski is dead. He is 52 years old. Saturday, the 1st of February, 2025. Later, the guide will tell journalists, Wudarski was an experienced mountaineer, the ascent was going well, and his sudden collapse was a shock. They did everything they could, but they could not prevent the tragedy. That sentence is the only direct testimony about the final hours of his life. No one else will speak. After the guide's statement comes a silence that will not be broken. The official medical cause of Arkadiusz Wudarski's death has not been publicly announced. Neither the Argentine authorities, nor the Aconcagua Park Administration, nor the expedition operator has released a document stating the cause of death was such and such. For the family, a medical report may exist. For everyone else, there is only the word collapse and the context that allows theories but confirms none of them. The context says the following. Aconcagua's statistics over the last decade show that the vast majority of deaths on the mountain are from medical causes that reports label unspecified. Behind that word could lie sudden cardiac failure, when a heart overloaded by viscous blood and oxygen deprivation simply stops. It could be high-altitude pulmonary edema, in which fluid fills the alveoli and a person suffocates within minutes. It could be high-altitude cerebral edema, in which consciousness fades faster than a person can call for help. It could be an arrhythmia triggered by cold and hypoxia. Each of these causes is compatible with what the guide described, a sudden collapse with no warning symptoms. But none of them has been confirmed, and none will be unless the family decides to make the autopsy results public, if an autopsy was performed. There are no alternative theories, no suspicions, no disputes surrounding the death. No mountaineering publication has printed an analysis of the incident. No federation has issued a report. For the mountaineering community, the death of a 52-year-old participant in a commercial expedition on Aconcagua is a tragic event, but not an exceptional one. It fits a pattern that researchers have documented in the statistics, a growing share of fatalities among climbers over 50, at altitudes above 6,000 meters, from causes that are impossible to predict and often impossible to prevent. Questions remain that will probably never be answered. What was the group's acclimatization schedule? How many days did they spend on the mountain? Did Wudarski undergo a medical examination at base camp? Did he have any altitude experience between Kilimanjaro and Aconcagua? Who organized the expedition, and what are the qualifications of the guide who called him an experienced mountaineer when the only confirmed summit in his biography, Kilimanjaro, is technically a trek? The documents are silent, and that silence is also part of the story. The silence of documents does not mean the silence of people. The first to report the death is the Argentine outlet La Nación, brief and in the style of an incident report. Polish mountaineer, 52 years old, collapse at 6,500 meters, death confirmed by a UPRAM doctor. For Argentine media, this is a routine story of the season. People die on Aconcagua every year, and the names of foreigners rarely stay in the headlines longer than a single day. But in Poland, they know this name. The news crosses the Atlantic and reaches regional newsrooms. Gazeta Lubuska publishes an article with details. 8 years at the University of Zielona Góra, membership in the International Academy of Comparative Law, altitude of 6,600 meters, 350 meters short of the summit. Radio Zakod runs an obituary, an outstanding jurist and scholar of the Lubuski region, a lover of mountains and a marathoner. The Slubis 24 news portal adds what no official text contains. He was an extraordinary person, full of passion and engagement in everything he did. Then the universities begin to speak. Viadrina, Collegium Polonicum, Szczecin, Zielona Góra, Częstochowa, 5 institutions with which years of work connected him, publish obituaries one after another. In the lobby of Collegium Polonicum in Slubice, his photograph is placed and a candle is lit. For the students who sat in his comparative law seminars just yesterday, this is their first encounter with the fact that a professor might not come back from vacation. The wave travels further. From Tbilisi comes an extensive tribute. The law faculty of Tbilisi State University remembers how Wudarski organized summer schools for Georgian students in Berlin and Slubis, supervised their research, co-authored publications with them, and built a bridge between Georgian and Polish law. The Swiss Notarial Society publishes an obituary. They remember his lecture on the digitalization of the German notarial system, his energy, his Marathon des Sables. The academic journal GPR, Zeitschrift für das Privatrecht der Europäischen Union, runs an obituary by Professor Michael Sturner. The scale of the response is unusual for a person who was not a public figure. The academic world of 4 countries, Poland, Germany, Georgia, and Switzerland, bids farewell to a colleague they knew personally, not from headlines. But beyond university websites and legal journals, the news dissolves quickly. No documentaries, no books, no podcasts. The world outside the campus walls will never learn who it has lost. Beyond the campus walls, a process continues that obituaries don't mention. The body of Arkadiusz Wudarski is in Argentina, 10,000 kilometers from Poland. The repatriation of remains from the province of Mendoza is a process that takes time. Consular documents, medical paperwork, transportation. More than a month passes between the date of death and the date of the funeral. 34 days during which the family waits for the return of a man who left to conquer a summit. The funeral service is set for the 7th of March, 2025. The Church of St. Adalbert on Brzeźnica Street in Częstochowa, 1 in the afternoon. After the service, burial at the Kule Cemetery. The city where Wudarski received his first appointment in 1999 takes him back one last time. 26 years ago, he came here as a 26-year-old graduate with 2 degrees and the ambition to create an academic school from nothing. Now, they carry him through the same streets. Viadrina University publishes a memorial page on its website. Wudarski's work email address is left open for those who wish to express condolences. His words are used as an epigraph, that same motto about pushing beyond your limits. Students and colleagues who read that phrase now hear something in it that wasn't there before. In Tbilisi, the gold medal of Tbilisi State University, awarded in 2024, was never presented in person. It was to be given to Wudarski during his next visit to Georgia, a visit that will now never take place. The medal will be delivered to the family. The research visit to Vietnam, planned for 2025, is crossed off the calendar. Conferences where he was expected will go on without him. The department in Slubice is orphaned. His case will not prompt a review of safety regulations on Aconcagua. For the mountain, he is one line in the statistics. Male, 52, collapse above 6,000 meters. Medical cause unspecified. A pattern that repeats season after season and that researchers document with growing alarm. More and more middle-aged people arrive at this mountain with excellent running fitness and insufficient altitude experience. Some of them don't come back. The statistics grow, but nothing changes. For those who knew Wudarski personally, statistics are just noise. What remained on Aconcagua was not a data point in a table, but a person who connected the legal systems of two countries, ran across deserts, and taught students in Tbilisi, Slubice, and Zielona Gora, all at the same time. A person who connected, built, and pushed beyond, and whose absence is now felt in lecture halls from Szczecin to Tbilisi. But beyond those lecture halls remains a question that his story poses not to lawyers or mountaineers, but to anyone who has ever had to decide, stop or keep going. Push beyond your limits, because only then do you truly live. Wudarski didn't say these words as a slogan, but as a description of his own way of existing. They explain why a man with a doctoral degree from the University of Hamburg goes off to build a department in provincial Częstochowa, why a professor who could have settled for one university works at 3, why a lawyer whose workday is already longer than most changes into running gear after lectures and heads out to cover a distance. The same motto takes him to the Sahara, where 230 kilometers of sand test not your legs but your willingness to endure. To Everest Base Camp, where the marathon starts at an altitude where most people can barely walk. To Kilimanjaro, where oxygen deprivation turns every step in the final hours into a conscious decision. One more. And finally, to Argentina, to a mountain 1,000 meters higher than anything he had known before. There is no built-in limiter in that motto, no clause that says, stop here. No formula that separates the will that lifts a person to the summit from the ambition that leads them past the point of no return. Wudarski lived as though that line did not exist, and that is precisely why he lived a life that contained more than 52 years can hold. 2 countries, 4 universities, dozens of marathons, deserts, and summits on 3 continents, the gold medal of Tbilisi, the Academia Europaea, students in 3 languages, books that will be cited after him. And that is precisely why, on the 1st of February 2025, he is at an altitude of 6,600 meters, 350 meters from the summit of Aconcagua. In the lobby of Collegium Polonicum in Slubice, a photograph stands and a candle burns. In Tbilisi, a medal lies with no one to receive it. At the Kule Cemetery in Częstochowa, a fresh grave of a man who believed that limits exist to be pushed beyond. He was right, and he was wrong. And in the gap between being right and being wrong lies his entire story.